All right, in this lesson, we are talking about personal finance. All right, so the basic idea behind this idea of personal finance is basically in and out. So the idea is that more has to come in than goes out. If more is going out than coming in, your bank account is quickly going to go down to zero. And so it's a good idea to keep track of your spending so that you know how much is going in and going out and where exactly it's going. So at the moment, most of you are going to be living with your family, or if you're not living with your family, most likely your family is in some way kind of supporting your life. And for you, most of the money coming in is going to be your allowance, maybe if you get one. Some people do, some people don't. Some people have a part-time job, and you get like gifts, birthday money or whatever it is, Christmas money. I don't know. And for you right now, money going out is going to be a few things. Could be giving it to your family to help with the expenses, or it could be saving for the future, university, car, retirement. It might be saving it to buy something, a goal like a car or a new computer or something. Or you could be spending it on fun things, going to McDonald's and grabbing an ice cream with your friends, or getting your morning coffee, or buying the latest game on Steam, whatever it is, right? So that's right now. What about later on in life? Well, later on in life, your parents are most likely going to stop supporting you at some point. What point that is, it kind of depends, different for every family. Sometimes it's when high school is done, sometimes it's when university is done, and for some people, it's like when they get married or something. Like I said, different for everyone. So then money coming in is going to be mostly income from your job. So you'll have to get a job. And then what about money going out? All right, well, let's take a look. And here's the list of money going out. You can see it's much longer than the list of money going out before, also much longer than the list of money coming in. So here are potential things, and this list also is not exhaustive. There is many things that could be on that list that I forgot to mention or whatever. But yeah, rent, car expense, mortgage, groceries, utilities, clothing, dining out, insurance, bus pass, fun stuff, savings, loan repayments, and so on, tax. Okay, so a lot of things, and we're going to take a closer look at some of these items of money going out. Okay, first and the biggest part, most likely, of your money going out is going to be housing. So, in theory, what they say, the experts, anyways, is that you shouldn't spend more than about 1/3 of your income on housing. And if you are spending more than half your income on housing, that is not a great situation. You should try and either increase your income, always good, or decrease your housing expenses somehow. Easier said than done. And many people, especially when they're young, income is still relatively low, and so a lot of people share this expense with a roommate or a partner or something. So, instead of, one person living in an apartment themselves, you have two people living there. So then the housing cost is like split in half. So that's what a lot of people do, what a lot of people have to do these days in this city because it's just too expensive otherwise. How expensive is it? Let's take a look. So rent. So yeah, there's two ways that you can pay for your housing. You can either rent your housing or you can own your housing. So we'll talk about rent first. So how much is rent? Well, depends on the size of the place you're renting, depends on the location of the place, and it depends on how nice it is. Prices are going up all the time. As of right now, one bedroom condo in downtown Vancouver is going to cost you somewhere, if you're getting 2,000, that's a good deal. Most likely it'll be above 2,000. I said 2,400 to 3,000 a month. That's for one bedroom, and usually these downtown places, they're small bedrooms too. East Van is a little cheaper, so it might be 1,600 or something. up to 2,000 or 2,400. And the further out you go, like the further from downtown you are, generally, the cheaper it will be. So location matters. Like closer to downtown, more expensive, farther away is cheaper. The size also matters. So a bigger place is going to be more expensive, like obviously, right? So if you have 2 bedrooms, that's going to be more expensive than 1 bedroom. And also, the third thing, as I said, how nice it is also matters. So if you have like kind of a grungy old basement apartment, that is going to be cheaper than like a very brand new modern place with all the fancy, I don't know, hardwood floors or whatever. So those are the 3 factors to consider when figuring out kind of the prices: location, size, and like how nice it is. Buying things. Okay, so if you're buying, you want to buy a house in Vancouver. Very unlikely that it will be less than 1 million. In fact, almost certainly will be more than 1 million. So you can get, and so obviously it's hard for you to save $1 million. So what most people do is they get a mortgage. We'll talk more about mortgages in another lesson. I'll go more into it, but here's a typical example. You might, a million in East Vancouver might get you a nicer 2 bedroom condo or maybe a 2 bedroom townhouse or something like that. How it works is you buy the place for 1 million, you need to put a down payment. So down payment is typically 20%, maybe 25%. And so if the place is 1 million, your 20% down payment is going to be 200,000. And so your mortgage is 800,000. So how does that work in terms of your monthly payments? We'll just go to a mortgage calculator. All right, here we are with your mortgage calculator. I'm going to put in my mortgage amount of 800,000 and calculate. And here it is. My monthly payment is going to be $4,925.13. Here's the details over on this side. So that's with interest rate 5.59%. And if we click on there, it's a 5-year fixed mortgage. And so that's amortization of 25 years. So like I said, we'll get more into mortgages in another lesson. Almost $5,000 per month. Okay, so over a year, that's 5,000 times 12 is 60,000. That's 60,000 in housing that you're paying every year. And if you'll recall, going back to our slides here, so I'm just going to backtrack a couple. Here, this one. This one, I said, your housing shouldn't be more than about 1/3 of your income, right? So I'm saying if you buy this house with an $800,000 mortgage, your mortgage payment per year is going to be about 60,000. That means you should have an income about 60,000 times 3, which is $180,000. So I know that you researched some jobs, and I don't know how many you researched that were above $180,000, but yeah, I mean, a lot of them are not that much. So you see the problem here, right? Let's continue on. I don't have exactly a solution to this, although we'll talk about a few ideas later on. This is also part of the housing cost, but it's in addition to either the rent or the mortgage. If you live in a condo, you'll have a strata fee, which is paid every month. Usually it's 200 to 400. I've heard higher, like maybe up to 500 per month. So you have to add that as well to what you're paying out every month. That pays for some things like repair and maintenance. If you have a house, like a detached house, you'll have to pay for those things on your own, and the expenses for that can vary a lot. So things that you might have to pay for is repairing the plumbing, repairing furnaces or replacing furnaces, heaters, upgrading things, fixing the roof, fixing fences, etc., etc. So some of these things are cheaper, and you could do it yourself maybe. Like for example, a fence, maybe you could do that yourself. Just buy the materials like the wood or whatever, and that's maybe costing you a couple thousand or something. Whereas if you're replacing, say, a furnace or something, you're looking like, I don't know, 10,000, 15,000. I think I mentioned I recently at my home, we bought a heat pump, and that was, altogether, including the electrical upgrades that we had to do, yeah, that was in the range of like 30,000. So some things are expensive. Like you have to replace your roof, that could be 10 to 20,000. So things, those things don't happen every year, right? You buy a new furnace and hopefully it's good for 30 years or something. But it seems like always something going wrong that has to be fixed. So that's another expense that you have to account for as part of your housing cost. Moving on to cars. I know not everybody is planning to own a car or drive a car, but a lot of people are, so we'll spend a little bit of time talking about that. The amount of money that you spend on your car obviously can vary a lot depending on the car. So a cheaper car, not the cheapest, but kind of a cheaper car, might be like $30,000. If you get it on a 5-year loan, so you borrow money from the bank and say, I want to borrow 30,000 for this car, then you have to pay back, and it's going to be about $550 a month for 5 years, something like that. So that's one thing, is the cost of the car itself. Obviously, some cars can be much more expensive, $100,000 or more. Insurance for people, young people in particular, tends to be fairly high. So you can call it, say, 3,000 a year. For myself, I pay, more, something like 1,500 or less a year. It depends on the value of your car, depends on your driving record, depends on a lot of things. Gas. So gas depends on how much you drive. Obviously, if you drive more, you have to spend more on gas. Some cars also tend to spend more on gas as well. Depends how big the engine is. Or you might have like a hybrid or electric car, in which case, in a hybrid, you'll be spending, quite little per gas, and in a electric, you won't spend anything on gas. Instead, you'll be spending on electricity to charge your car, which is actually much, much cheaper than gas. Anyways, call it somewhere between 1,000 and 3,000 a year, although gas prices are hard to predict these days. Gas prices, well, as I'm recording today, gas prices are about $2 a liter. But, they have gone up as high as like $2.40 a liter, and as low as like, $1.70 something a liter. So pretty big range in terms of gas prices. It tends to fluctuate quite a bit. Repairs and maintenance on your car. I'm guessing you could say 1,000 a year. It really depends a lot on, how old or new your car is. Newer cars will have less maintenance. Older cars will have more. And 1,000 a year may not do it. Like if you have to, say, replace your transmission or something, that's already 1,000, more than 1,000 already just for that, right? Parking. So yeah, obviously it depends on where you're parking and for how long and stuff. So altogether, your car expense, as low as maybe 4,000 a month, or sorry, a year, as high as 15,000 a year. So it can be a pretty big variation. If you're not into cars, you still have to get around somehow. And so that could be looking at a bus. And so a 3-zone bus pass, so costs you somewhere in the neighborhood of 2,000 a year. A lot of workplaces actually have programs where they will pay for part of your bus pass. So that's good. If look into that wherever you work, maybe you have that. Other options for getting around are things like taxi, Uber, car share, things like that. Those are obviously more expensive than buses, and it depends how far you're going and stuff like that. Other modes of transportation, obviously walking. That walking is free. Bicycle. Nowadays, there's other kind of options like electric scooter, electric bike, electric unicycle. So those are potentially options for you to get around as well. All right, let's talk about food. Okay, so groceries. So it depends on, where and how you shop. For one person, 500 to 600 a month is pretty standard. Although, like I said, like everything, it can vary a lot depending on how you do your shopping and what you shop for and stuff like that. If you're buying a lot of meat, well, meat tends to be more expensive, so you might be spending a bit more. Higher quality food, if you want to get like all organic stuff or whatever, that also tends to be more expensive, though, so then you'll be spending more. Alternatively, if you want to be cheaper, you can find deals or just like shop the sales and just buy stuff on sale, or go to like the local grocery store that has like the produce that has been rejected by Safeway or something, because it's not as nice, and you can buy those for like half price or something, and yeah, you can still get it cheaper. I will say that prices of food have been like everything, has been rising a lot. Watch out for that. Utilities. So utilities, I'll kind of talk about each one as they come. Electricity, for like a one bedroom apartment, it might be somewhere $48 a month, probably even less, maybe $30 a month. Gas is generally used to heat your home, heat your water. So there you're talking about 40 a month, maybe two. Although depends. Winter is going to be higher and lower in the summer. Actually, if you live in an apartment building, it's quite likely that you won't even have to pay for that much gas, because they're heating the apartment, like the central apartment, and a lot of that heat will bleed into your particular unit, and that's good enough for a lot of people, I think. Yeah, so it depends a lot, I guess. Internet, you're talking about around 40 a month. If you want super high speeds like what we have here at Vantech, you're gonna have to pay more. Cell phone, again, around 40 a month for a cheap plan. If you want, more data or whatever, it's gonna be more. Cable, if anyone still even gets that, so that's around 40 a month. Other streaming services, Netflix, Spotify, so it depends on which ones, but uh, I guess, most people have a couple streaming services at this point, and usually it's around 10 or 12 bucks a month, something like that, maybe 15 bucks a month. So you might have like three of those or something, I don't know. Clothing, so I have no idea how much you spend on clothing. Some people spend a lot, some people spend little, so it depends on you. Dining out, obviously, obviously is more expensive than just buying groceries. For the same amount of food, you have to pay more, because you have to pay for someone to prepare it and work at the restaurant and stuff. I would say average of between $10 to $20 per meal. So yeah, just depends on how many meals you're eating out in a month. Eating out a few times a month is normal, but yeah, some people they don't cook, so then they just eat out basically every meal. So that can get expensive, right? Insurance. If you own your own house or apartment, you'll buy home insurance. So it can vary. But it's several hundred a year, 500 to 1500, could be more actually, depending on what coverage you get. Renter's insurance is less because it doesn't cover the building itself. It's only like your your TV, your Peloton bike or whatever, your jewelry. So that's going to be 300 to 500 a year. Car insurance, we already talked about. Life insurance always also kind of varies quite a bit. But if you're healthy and young, you can say $1 a day, so a few hundred per year for life insurance. Life insurance, it's generally the purpose of life insurance is like if you die, that your family can still be fine. Like if you are the main, money making person in your family and you die, then your family has nobody making money, and what are they going to do? That's the problem that life insurance is supposed to solve. If you're just on your own, no family, I don't know if there's a real big need to have life insurance at all, even. All right, moving on to interest and loans. So we've already talked about car loans. We've already talked about mortgage, other kind of loans that you might be paying back, student loans, credit card debt, line of credit, payday loan. We'll have another lesson kind of that discusses stuff like that, so I won't talk too much about it. But yeah, potentially, every month you're paying a bunch of money to pay off some of these debts or loans. Education, we've already talked about this in another lesson. You're going to UBC or SFU full time. It's somewhere in the $5,000 to $8,000 per year. College is a little cheaper. It just depends on what program you're in. Vacation, people like to go on vacation, and that can be expensive. That can be cheap. If you're at a resort or a cruise or something, you're looking at $1,000 to $2,000 a week. A flight might cost you $1,000 depending on where you're going. Hotels might cost you around $200 a night. Eating all the time, $50 to $100 a day. So if you're looking at a 1 week vacation, including flight, so flight plus hotel plus food plus attractions, you got to get your Disney World pass or whatever. That's several hundred. So altogether, you might be looking at $3,000 to $4,000 for that 1 week for one person. Obviously, more people will be more money. But obviously, you can also take vacations that are much cheaper. Like if you go backpacking in Asia or something, that's going to be a much cheaper vacation than going to like a resort. And then we have fun stuff. So fun stuff, we're talking about concerts, games, movies. Like the list of fun stuff is pretty much unlimited. And the cost of the fun stuff is also, could be unlimited depending on what you're doing. This stuff varies quite a lot. Some people have expensive hobbies, some people have cheap hobbies. So it just depends on you. Saving. So it is recommended that you have 6 months of expenses in reserve in your bank account, just in case of emergency. So for a single person, that might look like 10,000 or 15,000 in the bank. And try not to let your bank account go any lower than that. But, in addition to emergency, so by emergency, I just, maybe you got laid off from your job, or you got fired, or you couldn't work because you were injured, or, could be a lot of different things, but good to have that little padding just in case. But besides that, you might be saving for different things, saving for down payment, saving for retirement, etc., etc. We will talk more about especially saving for retirement in a future lesson. Okay, so that's all the expenses. So how do we kind of plan for it? The idea is that you should set a realistic budget and then try and track your spending. So for example, you'll spend no more than $200 on dining out every month and try to stick to that. So you do that for a while, and then you get familiar with your own spending habits, and you can adjust it accordingly. There's different apps that you can use to do that. So there are a few there, and there's different examples of budgets that you can use as well. Here's an example of a budget here, and you can see kind of all the different categories that we've already talked about, plus more that I didn't really touch on. And you see there's like two columns, one for actual or one for budget. That's your plan. Here's what I plan. And then one for actual. So after the month is over, you take a look at what you've spent and say, oh, I was planning on spending, $200 on dining out, but I actually spent like $800. And so is that something I want to change? That was not my plan, kind of. So that kind of thing. So there's lots of different monthly household budgets that you can get. Just as examples. So just overall, a big part of your budget is going to go to housing. If you can save on housing, you'll be in much better shape financially, just because that's the biggest category. A lot of people think it is impossible to live in Vancouver these days. And, some of the examples that I've given you kind of suggest that. But actually, I think it is okay. Like if you can, so all the numbers that I presented were kind of typical standard numbers, but if you can save money on certain things, or if you can lower your standards on certain things, definitely it is possible to live in Vancouver. I mean, millions of people are living here in Vancouver, so it must be possible, right? So anyways, it is possible if you are able to sacrifice certain things. But yeah, you must have kind of a good sense of what money is coming in and what money is going out. Otherwise, you won't be able to kind of control it well. That is it for this lesson. See you in the next one.